Hello everyone and welcome back to my two-part series of teaching advanced DBD. I mean just advanced DBD in general, I guess, an advanced DBD guide. And in this video we are going to be talking about the more difficult and more heavy topic that isn't discussed nearly as much as it is in other games, which is macro. Now, macro is a big part of DBD, and it's really difficult to explain on a good level on what it really is. I think a good comparison between micro and macro is that being good at micro means that you're good at the game, I guess being good at micro can win you games, whereas being good at macro wins you matches. So I explained it very weird in a way, but micro and being good at micro is you utilizing yourself and your skill in order to win against your opponent. In DBD, this comes down to basically looping. That's essentially kind of it. Micro is about looping, it's about doing generators and stuff like that. Whereas macro is about the game, winning the certain matches. Sure, being good at micro is definitely a essential in order to win games, but without macro you will not be able to control the game at all, really. And the thing is that macro is really overlooked in Dead by Daylight for a handful of reasons. The biggest one is that macro makes you win games, and macro is all about winning and nothing else, and winning is nothing that Dead by Daylight is about. And the developers doesn't want Dead by Daylight to be about winning or losing, especially considering a few factors, mainly that it is not a competitive game. You gain nothing from winning games. You gain no visual ranks, etc. But also you're supposed to be able to find your fun even though if you are not winning. And yeah, Dead by Daylight has no reason for you to try to win ever, really, unless you're playing like a tournament or something like that where everything is about winning. And if you want to win games, you need to understand macro. In Dead by Daylight, being an asymmetrical game makes it really difficult with macro, because if you have an insanely good macro as a killer, it will be insanely easy to win games. But if you have an insanely good macro as a survivor, you may still easily lose games, because if your teammates are not on the same level as you, it will be really hard to actually win games if your teammates don't understand the same level of macros you do, and you can't really control that in solo queue. Now, in Dead by Daylight, what is macro? Well, the thing is, there isn't really anything that isn't macro. There are very few basic stuffs that is macro knowledge. Some overlaps with micro and macro is knowing all the perks, all the killers, all the killer powers, and how they play. I discussed this a little bit in the micro video. But as I said, they do overlap. Something that is super important with macro as well is knowing every map and knowing the layout of every map, and also knowing spawns, knowing where totem spawns in different tiles and in different maps, knowing where generators spawn, and more importantly, how to play around the generator spawns, and making sure that you do not get 3-gened, but also that you save the most important and the safest generators for last. Like, for example, the main generator in the main building of Dead Dog Saloon is the safest generator in that map, solely because you can do that generator and always know if the killer is going to get close to you or not, and it is usually very important for you to save those generators for last when the killer has the most pressure, in order to free up space for you and your teammates. Now, breathing room is something that is very hard to understand, but it's also very hard to apply. Breathing room basically means how much are you, your teammates and opponents going to stress out during a game, and giving your teammates the most breathing room as possible will make sure that they are able to play the way that they want to play, and leaves room for mistakes and time management mistakes, which you will see happen very often with you and solo queue teammates. There is no real way to explain explain how you do this. There are certain stuff that can influence this. Maybe running the killer on the opposite side of the map where your teammates are healing or doing a generator usually frees up a lot of space. Going for an unhook instead of making your other teammates do it. Stuff like that really is kind of important. And speaking of breathing room, we also have to talk about map control and also game plans. Those are two terms that can also be pretty hard to define and is very match to match based. You won't have the same game twice, and that is something that gets affected by this. Map control is basically when you or your opponents control the map, essentially. It's really hard to explain really what this means, especially in Dead by Daylight, but a killer controlling the map essentially means that the killer can kind of steer the survivors away from objectives in a comfortable way where they don't have to worry too much, and this is all affected by pressure gained from injuries or death hooks and stuff like that. It is a lot easier for a killer to push off survivors from objectives if those survivors are injured and have been hooked a lot of times, and especially if they haven't done a lot of generators, because that makes them have to spend so much more time doing generators when they are close to actually dying, which puts a lot of pressure, and they have to be really careful and actually play in their opponent's hands and play around how their opponent do, essentially making sure that the opponent is actually controlling the others, and in this case, and in this example I was bringing up, is the killer controlling the game by kind of not having to worry about small stuff and can actually focus on the actual pressure, and in that sense being able to control the map and also control the plays that are actually happening throughout the match. Game plans is something that is very important for both sides, but I would say that is especially important for survivors to understand a good game plan, because you can't communicate that to your survivors. So each one of you have to understand the game plan to a good extent. Now the thing is, with solo queue, you and your teammates will never ever be able to have the same game plan, because you can't communicate it and you can't really read each other's thoughts, obviously. The killer obviously needs a game plan as well, but they are in control of their own game plan and they don't have to worry about their teammates having different game plans. So game plans and win conditions, they are kind of self-explanatory, but it is how you are going to plan out the game and how you're going to play it in the best way to give you an advantage of winning. A game plan usually starts off the second you get into the game, such as I talked about earlier, preventing 3 gens. That is a huge part of a game plan. But when you get later into like the mid and late parts of the game, it is really important to actually follow a pretty good game plan, because if you don't plan this stuff out, you might get caught up in the moment and make bad decisions because you haven't planned out how you were going to play the game before it happens. And obviously you can't really predict how you're going to play out the match, how it's going to play out, but when it comes to the mid and late game, you can have some slight plans on how you're going to approach it, depending on the killer you're playing against, how much pressure you or the killer has, etc., and stuff like that. The game plan can be as simple as doing one generator and knowing which one to move to next. It can be making sure that you heal your teammates and that you and your team will go and reset and heal, or alternatively don't reset and heal and instead put pressure on generators. It is knowing when all the generators pop, which exit gate you should go and try to open. It's stuff like that, stuff that is important and kind of central to the game, but also something that you can actually change in the moment, and it isn't too much of a deal if you actually change your game plan or change what you were doing, like you were going to an exit gate and then you see that it is super heavily pressured by the killer, so then you can go ahead and move on to the other exit gate. And then what might happen then is that maybe a teammate gets chased to your exit gate and the killer starts moving toward you, and then you move back to the first exit gate where that is 99 because the teammate was there, and stuff like that. And win conditions is knowing win conditions is basically knowing what you have to do, it's knowing what the next play is to make sure that you can win the game. as usual. It is like based on game to game, a game to game basis. But a win condition is playing around a certain thing that your teammates have the upper hand of. And when I'm talking now, I'm referring to Survivor only, because this is about like Survivor guide, but you can still apply it as a killer. But I'm not talking like about killer scenarios and stuff like that. But a win condition can be anything, really. It can be maybe your win condition can be that you seek out the killer and make them chase you because you notice that your teammates are maybe, kind of bad at looping or have weird builds that don't center around looping and center around whatever. And then the win condition in that example is you taking the chase and letting your teammates do the objectives instead. It can be seeking out his teammates to heal them, making sure that they won't go down. That can be like a part of your win condition, because then the killer loses pressure and your survivor can do whatever and do risky plays because they're not injured. A win condition can be not cleansing your sickness when you're playing against the plague. It can be sparing all of the vaccines from Nemesis until the very late game. It is very, very game-to-game based, but knowing what your win condition is makes you able to play around that certain thing, which can obviously elevate your chances to win, because if you read the game, if you read your teammates, and if you read your opponent, you can make sense of what the best thing for you to do is in order for you to have the biggest advantage in order to actually win. And win conditions, as I said a little bit earlier, it is something that doesn't really apply too much to DBD and, macro in general. People don't talk about this. And like I said, the reason people don't talk about it is because you're not supposed to be focused on winning, which I stand by. I don't think that you should go ahead and go out of your day to try to win every single game that you play. You shouldn't get frustrated by not winning in Dead by Daylight because, it doesn't really affect anything. But knowing this, it can make it more fun to actually play the game because you understand what you have to do and you don't aimlessly walk around without knowing what to actually do. Plus, it's a pretty hidden topic when it comes to DBD because micro and macro, they go so close hand to hand in this specific game. So people who talk a lot about micro stuff and people who are really good at the game, they usually are already really good at macro. And content creators who make content about how to get better at DBD and better about looping and stuff like that, they always climb in a lot of macro stuff and a lot of macro knowledge that is good to know, even though they don't refer to it as a different thing as micro, like I'm doing. They are really most often talking about both hand in hand, and it is really hard to get a general knowledge down of actually learning how to do macro. It comes down to playing the game a lot and analyzing games, much like looping and micro is. So that is why I'm going to try to include a lot of gameplay where I am constantly talking about macro. And what I want to show with this footage and these games is how I am thinking. It is not about how you should be thinking and what is the right thing always. It's just me showing how my thoughts go about during the game and trying to encourage people to do the same and trying to encourage people to make sure that they don't stress out too much during the game, but also that they don't autopilot, because autopiloting is one of the biggest mistakes that people commonly do, meaning that you kind of just do whatever and don't think too much about it, compared to not being on autopilot, meaning that you think your decisions out before you do them. Those decisions can be mistakes, they can be bad decisions, but at least you're still thinking. And if you are able to think and analyze your thoughts and analyze them when you put them into the gameplay, like you might think oh, I should go and do this generator, but then that fails because the killer was chasing another teammate around that generator and you take it down and you go on death hook and then the killer has pressure on you. You can understand what you did wrong and how you should think and approach the game the next time you get in a situation like that. So being able to think while you actually do stuff makes you able to analyze yourself, because most of the time you're not going to be watching back your gameplay. That is something that is very, very common of getting good at a lot of video games. You watch back yourself when you're playing and you analyze your own gameplay, but that is nothing that you really do in Dead by Daylight and nothing that you should really do. So it is more and more important when you don't do that to actually analyze it during the games, but also being critical and being self-critical and and not just blaming it on dumb factors, not blaming you dying on like stuff that doesn't really matter, but also not being too harsh on yourself. It's all about learning how to like actually critique yourself. So that is something that is going to elevate your gameplay a lot with micro and macro. Thinking when you do stuff, but also understand what you're thinking, why it might be good or wrong. And how you come to this conclusion is by analyzing other people's gameplay, good players' gameplay, but also trial and error and doing it over and over again until you get more comfortable with the topic in your brain and understanding by yourself what is right and what is wrong and how it all works basically. So I'm gonna show you how I go by in the game with actually analyzing what I should do on a macro level, and I hope that you can understand what things I do and what I do right and wrong in the situations, but also that I'm able to make you apply this to your own gameplay and make you able to actually analyze yourself and your gameplay on your own. Alright, so macro is still it's a difficult topic, and it's pretty difficult to explain because it is very, very, very affected from everything that goes on in the game. It depends on your teammates, it depends on the enemy killer, what killer they're playing, how they're playing, it depends on what map you get, it depends on what build the killer has, what build your teammates has. If the killer or the survivors you're playing with are playing with each other, a lot of Swifts that you might come across playing with, like a 3-man Swift, might play a certain play style, might be doing like some sabo plays, might be doing some head-on plays and stuff like that, and will not focus on the basics, which is, you know, doing gens, preventing 3 gens, and everything like that. Speaking of preventing 3 gens, that is the main objective that Survivors has throughout the game, and being able to successfully do this requires you to play all the maps quite a few times until you learn the spawn positions of the actual generators, and you can comfortably kind of understand from game to game where you are supposed to go next, but also where you can find generators. Totem spawns can also be pretty important, especially if the killer is going a hex build. So knowing the spawn logic and spawn locations generally of them makes sense. Lethal Pursuer is a risk that you have to be aware of every single game you play. For the first few seconds, just run around a little bit, confuse the killer a bit. We see that we spawned with another ally. We see the killer there, it's a trapper. Never mind, it's a doctor, I'm dumb. So we're gonna do this generator. We can see our teammate there, and we know we have a generator here. We know we always have a generator in main. We have a generator on this map around shack, and then we have one generator there that my teammate is on. And in this specific swamp map, there is a possibility that a generator spawns in the even further far corner of the map. We can see that Serena is doing a generator separate from the one me and Jill are doing. I can see that Serena, or the Claudette, is running the killer to me for no reason. We have to pre-run away to get him to focus on the Claudette, because like you can see, he's going for the generator instead to apply some pressure. So I want to pre-run away before he gets to me, because I don't want to take the chase away, because I don't know why I would. We know that he has overcharge, which is good to know. A lot of people who go overcharge will prioritize kicking generators over actually committing to chases and stuff like that. It's a very common playstyle that killers have. It's a pretty destructive one as well. Running around and only kicking generators, not applying any, lethal or death pressure to survivors is not good for the killer. So we can play around that a lot. A lot of newer or less experienced killers will go ahead and prioritize kicking generators because they think they apply pressure that way, which is usually really wrong, because you don't apply pressure on survivors by kicking their generators and camping them. You apply pressure by downing survivors and actually committing to chases. This is a really good generator to have just sitting here. We have this generator completed. We have the generator completed in main, meaning that this one can possibly prevent a 3-gen. No matter, it's a little bit hurtful that we actually progressed that generator a lot, and now we have to leave it. That's a little bit sad, but we have to prioritize not getting 3-gen. We can see the Claudette getting hooked over there, and we know that the doctor will know about me. We're gonna go to and run to the main generator. He's maybe gonna be interested in going on me, and then I want to run him into a dead zone where no generators are close to him. He doesn't apply pressure to generators while chasing me here, and it is a pretty safe building. Moving the killer to a spot of the map that is very bad for the killer to be in is really good. A dead zone. A dead zone for survivors usually means a zone where there is not that much safety, not many windows, not many pallets, etc. Stuff like that. But running a killer into a dead zone or a dead zone means that you're running them into a place where they don't have a vested interest in. They might put pressure by trying to down you and stuff like that, but they have no pressure on generators because you run them into a place that has completed generators and or is far away from your survivor teammates. So we're going to continue with this one. A lot of the time, preventing 3-gen logic boils down to getting the most central and middle generators done first, which in this case is this generator and the one that I did in the beginning of the game. But of course not all the time that is going to be the case. As we can see with that specific generator, it can be really good preventing a 3-gen. We have a generator there that got completed, but if it didn't get completed we would have been 3-gen here. With this generator, and the generator was on the corner when she was hooked. We're probably gonna take a hit here. He's gonna leave us here, and we are going to go and heal ourselves. This is why I like bringing medkits, even though we have a big medkits nerf that happened. I really don't pay attention to that. Most of the time you will get healed by your teammates. Usually you don't go around injured that much, but sometimes, like right here, I have no teammates that can heal me, and if I did go to teammate to heal me, I would waste their time basically, and that is when it's good to have a medkit so you can heal yourself. Just to get rid of some of the pressure that the killer has by everyone being injured, because if everyone is injured, then the killer can M1 you once to take you down, and obviously that applies a big pressure to the survivors, because then they have to be extra careful with unhooks, they have to be extra careful with doing gens and everything. When we have this generator done, we have 3 generators left. We have the one that I was in the beginning, we have the one in the corner of the map right here, and I don't really know where the last one is. It's probably beyond Shack, around that area. So generally the generators are pretty far away from each other. We have this Claudette that needs to be unhooked. My teammates are most likely 3-man swiffing, so I will not have to prioritize or think too much about getting her unhooked. He's gonna go ahead and kick this generator. It's not gonna really matter that much to us. I don't think it's going to commit very much to us. Again, the dead zone logic, running him to a place that is far away from our objectives, meaning the hook and the generator right now. Well, generators, I guess. He knows that we have that almost popped, which is really good because that applies pressure to the killer, because the killer is going to be scared to move away from this specific generator right here. Because he doesn't obviously want us to complete the generators, but we have to touch it nonetheless because of oppression or overcharge. He's going to patrol around this area. The best thing to do in a position like this is to apply pressure, continue applying pressure to that generator, and let your teammates try to go on other generators. I'm running him into one of my teammates, which I don't want, but he is going to chase her, which is good for me. And the reason why we want to pressure that same generator over and over again is to control the places in the map where he is going to be sitting in. We want the killer to have as little map pressure and as little map coverage as possible, meaning that we don't want him to run around freely around the map and being able to control where he goes, and instead we apply pressure on one certain spot, giving survivors the ability to kind of roam freely around the map without worrying where the killer is, and instead we can go around, like I said, and pressure one generator, one specific spot where the killer is going to bounce back and forward to, because they are in a position where if they don't do that, then they are gonna lose a lot of generator progress, meaning that we get a lot of pressure and he loses a lot of pressure. Instead, he's going to commit to chases right here. We can see him over there, we can see him dropping chase, and we are again just over and over again going to pressure this generator. He's going to walk back and forth. The best position that we can be in right now is with people on separate generators. We want at least 2 generators at the same time, because then if I'm working on this generator and the doctor comes to me and starts chasing me, we still have another generator that is being worked on. We can see Claudette working on one, and the perfect situation would be if we had actually 3 generators that are being worked on, because that secures basically that no matter what, we are actually going to be able to finish the last generator. I don't know where the Claudette is. I think she is in the corner over there. We can see her in shack actually. So we have a generator over there, we have one in shack, and we have the one there. This one and the shack one is progress, which means that we want to pressure those as much as possible. But it also means that that's the ones that he's gonna focus the most on, which is going to bring me to this generator, because I just I want to make sure that he doesn't have too much pressure, and he will think that he's controlling the game with those 2 generators, because he sees us applying this pressure to these 2 generators, and in his mind that is the ones that he has to control the most, because those 2 generators are closer to each other. Like this one is the generator that is furthest away from any other generator, which is why I want to sit here and I want to focus on this one. If the killer comes here, he will be disabling or taking away pressure from us, obviously. But if he does come here, he has a long way to go back to the other 2 generators, which means that our other teammates can apply pressure there. You see me use the word pressure a lot. But that is because that is what macro is about. It's about applying pressure and, you know, playing with your opponent's mind, basically. It's about controlling their stress levels. It's about making sure that your opponent doesn't control you and where you are going, and controls you, your positioning on the map and stuff like that. But instead, you are pressuring your opponent and making sure that your opponent actually is the one that is being controlled. We can see the doctor on Serena. We saw her mid-map. We see the Claudette is running for the unhook. I have to go for this gate because I have nothing really else to do. Something I could be doing is going for the unhook as well, but we need to get some pressure down. This isn't really about pressure. There is both visible and invisible pressure. Invisible pressure is pressure that your opponent isn't aware of, and visible pressure is pressure that your opponent is aware of. For example, with having a lot of progress on generators. I didn't mean to open that gate, by the way, but this is pressure from us. He knows that we have an escape route with the gates opened, and we apply pressure through that, which is good for us. And then we have him camping that unhook. It's gonna be fairly easy for us. We know he doesn't have Noed. It didn't pop up that he has it. We're gonna be running through this safe unhook. He is going after the Jill, which is pretty good for us. I don't know why he's doing that. We should be able to unhook this and quickly heal her up, and be able to, you know, take hits and everything that is necessary in order to get her out. We have this gate as well. There's no real reason for us to open this, but it could be saving us in the future potentially to actually open that gate, because maybe he won't pressure this. The smartest idea is for us all to go grouped up together, because Claudette takes a hit there. I'm gonna take a hit now, and then Serena will be able to take a hit without, you know, me going down, making sure that we all escape, compared to us being at the other gate, where he can possibly take me down. If I focused on getting out that gate instead and opening that one, that could have killed me. But we've managed to get out anyways. So this is the thing with this macro video, is that I am basically not gonna be editing that much, because I'm talking all the time, because macroing is all about thinking all the time and making decisions all the time and trying to make the correct decisions that lead your team to actually winning the game. And as I discussed earlier, the Barilla isn't about winning, and it shouldn't be about winning. You shouldn't think about trying to win, but macro is about making sure that you give your teammates the biggest advantage in order to actually be able to win, and make sure that your opponent doesn't control you and your gameplay, and instead you control your opponents. I keep repeating that very statement, but that is because that is the most central thing. Controlling your opponent, controlling the map, and controlling the place, giving breathing room, and making sure that you don't put yourself and your teammates in a position that is going to be difficult to get out of. Okay, we're going with the same logic again, trying to just not give the killer an upper hand if they are using Lethal Pursuer. The thing with that is, you don't have to care too much about Lethal Pursuer. The main thing is just trying to stay around your general area where you spawned, because the killer will never spawn and where you spawned, obviously. But it is also about not showing them that you're starting to work on a generator, because if you show in the Lethal Pursuer window that the killer has to see with like the aura thing on you, if you show them that you are working on a generator sitting down, he gets so much information. Right now this nemesis will get so much information on what me and my teammates are doing, and just, you know, just choosing to blindly sit down at the beginning of the game on a generator gives the killer too much information, and instead you should run around a little bit, and preferably even you should get away from your spawn location after that window, because if you do that, that makes sure that the killer will not come to where you spawned, because really good players know where the spawn locations are in the map generally based on where they themselves spawn. So you have to watch out for that as well. Even though they don't have Lethal Pursuer, they can still pretty easily find you. Then we have grouping up on generators. That is a topic that is very, very difficult to actually explain. Grouping up on generators can be both good and bad. It really depends from game to game. In the beginning of the game, it can be good and it can be bad to actually spread out on generators. It can be good to spread out on generators because you apply pressure on different maps or different parts of the map, and you actually are able to pop a lot of generators at the kind of same time, building up a lot of pressure for the killer and getting generators done as soon as possible, because that is the main goal of the survivors. They want to get as many generators done as quickly as possible, and the killer wants to slow down and make sure that the survivors don't make them as soon as possible, since obviously the more the time goes in a game, the more pressure the killer actually gains. So the thing is, you want as a survivor to get as many generators done as quickly as possible, and obviously you make generators pop faster by grouping up on them because they progress faster. But it can also be really bad for you to do that, because if you do that, then there is a risk of the killer coming and chasing you guys off the generator, and in a second after that you guys just lose all the pressure that you had. So I can see that this guy has tanker now, which I will have to keep in mind. But yeah, if the killer comes to you guys that are sitting on the generator and you have a last ally doing whatever, maybe they're looking for a totem or something, you're going to lose so much pressure, and that's why you don't want to group up too much on generators, because if you do that, then you will practically lose a lot of pressure, which is why you want to spread out on at least 2 generators in the beginning of the game, so that you have like a kind of ace in the sleeve, ace up your sleeve, you know, making sure that the killer is actually gaining too much from chasing people off of generators in the beginning of the game. So we have a generator over there, we have a generator over there. That is going to be our 3-gen pocket. A 3-gen pocket, it's difficult to explain kind of, but the logic behind it is we have this part of the map where we have 2 generators. It's impossible for the killer to 3-gen this right now, and we want to save both of these generators for 2 reasons. The main reason is that they're really close to each other, so if we make sure that those 2 generators are saved to the very last of the game, that means the last generator will be across the map, and with that we also prevent our teammates from like messing up our anti-3 gen, because if we save just one of those generators in that little pocket, that leaves a risk of someone like autopiloting and finishing that generator. And if we have 2 generators, an ally can go and complete one of the generators, and we still have 1 left to prevent the 3 gen. And also it is just it's easy to prevent the 3 gen with that. Because when you have a little pocket like that of a generator or 2, you just do all the generators that are closest to those generators or that one generator, effectively kind of disabling a 3 gen. It isn't super difficult to prevent 3 gen when it comes to logic. The most difficult part is doing generators that won't get interrupted, because if you do generators that will get interrupted over and over, you lose a lot of pressure from that. But also if it is a generator that is, if it's a generator, I'm kind of bot blocking right there, I didn't mean to do that. If it is a generator that people are looping around and stuff like that, that can also be really bad. I don't know why he is so fast. Can no one tell me? He looks so fast. No? Yeah, but if people are looping a lot around the generator that you're seated on, that will obviously be pretty bad for you. I don't know what this Nemi is doing. Okay. That's a pretty nice hit. Alright. We go here. Again, we want to go and loop around places that aren't, going to be interrupted. We'll let him break that. I don't know why I pre-dropped that. It was kind of stupid. I don't think he has a range here. Never mind, I was wrong. Okay, so now we have successfully cancelled out a 3 gen, which is pretty good. And the thing about cancelling out 3 gens is that it is something that is most of the time going to be in your survivor team's mind. So they will kind of be on the same page as you. The problem is that you might not have the same anti-3 gen in mind. And it's difficult explaining why anti-3 gen is so important. Against some killers, it won't really matter. But no matter what, the killer not having a 3 gen in the end of the game is really, really horrible for them. Because they know that there is a guaranteed chance that the last generator will pop soon, because they can't patrol all of the generators. In my micro gameplay one, I talked about Nemesis and spreading out vaccines. That's something that's important against specifically Nemesis, not other vaccine killers like Wesker or the new killer that is releasing soon, the Singularity. And stuff like that. It's not important because you have so many of them. The thing with Nemesis is that you don't want to vaccinate yourself early for a few reasons. When you aren't infected, I think he gains more mutation rate when he hits you with his tentacle. Correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong with that. And then the thing is, if you vaccinate too early, you will lose 1 vaccination. You have 1 vaccine per survivor in your team. And basically you lose access to your vaccine when you use it early. And instead you want to wait until the very end game, until around this right now where we have the last generator being done. Because now, as you can see, I am fully healed and I am not infected, meaning that his tentacle has to hit me 3 times before I actually get downed. And also you can wait until your death hook. Like, if you're death hook, you should kind of use it no matter what, because you need to make sure that you don't like die quickly, obviously, and by using your vaccine, that obviously gives you that upper hand. Our teammates aren't pressuring any generators, like I talked about in the last game. It is pretty important in the last, with the last generator, that you pressure more than 1 at the same time. Especially since our teammate was hooked here, and I'm doing this generator here, and the killer is around this area. It is really good that my teammates are actually spreading out on generators. But thing is, this killer is gonna tunnel my teammates. And we see Vittoria doing a generator. They could spend this time healing up and stuff like that, and that's what I'm talking about with giving breathing room, because me sitting on that generator toward the end of this game gives my teammates breathing room, because they could have sat and reset. Right there you saw the injured Ada and the Vittorio and stuff like that. They could have sat and reset, because they just have so much windows, windows. They have so much breathing room to actually pull that off. Oh yeah, okay. I messed up a little bit, but so did he. So I see Vittorio's on there at the gate. I didn't pay attention to where the other gate is, which is pretty bad on my part. I keep getting stuck in this. Okay, he hits that, bro. I don't know if he's lagging or something. That's wild. That is actually wild. Okay, I think the gate should be there. Again, what is this? Bro, he's lagging, actually. Bro, there's no way he should be hitting those. Honestly. In what world does he hit all of those? It feels like he should have hit a single one of those. Maybe that's just me being biased. I don't know, bro. That just looked very weird. So my teammates... my teams are luckier around here. That's the thing. They should have reset when I was doing the last generator. The Ada, maybe I should have healed her. She wasn't begging me for heals when I was doing the generator, which I took as a sign of you don't need to heal me because I have adrenaline. She didn't have adrenaline, so I should have healed her. I guess. But yeah, she should have probably focused on finding Vittorio and resetting with him, and alternatively asking me for heals. That was close, me running into the killer. I thought that he was after the Ada because it showed up on the HUD that she was being chased. So I got a little scared there. And that's something that's good and important to know. Looking at the HUD during the game. Looking at what the teammates are doing. So you actually know what you should do next. And what you should focus on actually doing. So we've been talking about pressure a lot, obviously. The two games I've been playing, it hasn't been a good show of pressure from the killer side, because obviously the killer has pressure as well, and I was talking about that. The more the game goes on, the longer the game goes on, the more pressure the killer gets. But there is obviously a big risk that the killer will get pressure early on, and that is why killers like Blight and Nurse and Spirits and Artists are so strong, because they are able to quickly get injures. Same with Huntress, they're quickly able to get injures and downs, and a survivor getting down early is obviously going to apply a lot of pressure and be pretty dangerous for us. And that is why you need to learn micro in order to fully use macro to your advantage, because you have to learn to actually not take injures and downs too quickly, which can be really hard, especially for someone like me, especially when you're playing as really good players. Like this Huntress is very, very patient. Patience in Huntress is always something that goes hand in hand. Like there, I got a really quick down, and that is really, really bad for our teammates. Being patient with Huntress. A lot of good Huntresses will do this. No Huntress that is good is going to be impatient. Patience with Huntress basically means that you will wait until the survivor will basically guaranteed be hit before you throw your hatchet, and you make them kind of bottleneck and don't do some crazy dodging, which was what she was doing there. And we have no generators done. We have one at 50. We have me on hook, and we have a teammate injured. This is a really bad position for us, and a really good example of how you can build up pressure early as a killer, and that is the difference between low tier killers and high tier killers. That is the main difference between them. There is usually not something that is wrong about the killers themselves. The thing is that it just lays in how easy it is for them to actually apply pressure early, and how good they are at loop and like anti-loop and stuff like that. It is just about how quickly they can get an injury and quickly they can build pressure, because we have no generators down, and we have 2 hooks done on our team already, and that is insanely quick pressure from the killer. and that is something that is going to affect the whole game. And that is the main difference between high tier killers and low tier killers, that they can actually get downs and injuries very, very quickly in the game, compared to the more lower tier killers that have less mobility and stuff like that. And even someone like Legion is someone that you expect to apply pressure early, because they go around and injure people in the beginning of the game quickly and a lot like that. But it is very different, because an injury doesn't always equal a down survivor, and a Legion isn't going to go for down survivors when they use their frenzy, which is why they don't apply as much pressure as other killers do. Like, for example, a Huntress that do a quick does a quick injure. And the Huntress, that Huntress will also be able to get a quick down most of the time. Same with Nurse and same with Blight. It's very hard to delay them downing you when you have already gotten injured by them. And that is why they are able to build so much pressure so early in the game. Compared to us, our generators are going pretty slow. We are pretty okay right now, the generators. We have this one that is going to pop, and then we have the one David was on. We have Claudette and Michaela that is probably going to be able to pop their generator before David actually gets hooked, hopefully. And that will be 3 generators completed, depending on the David is running to his generator, so I don't know if I will be able to finish it. But in a perfect world, we will be able to pop 3 generators right here. Which is probably what's going to happen. Like, he got down there and is going to get picked up, but I am going to be able to pop this one, and they're going to be able to pop their generator. We're playing against a Huntress. Huntress seldomly uses deadlock and stuff like that. There's actually a hook here. It's really bad for us. And I have to run away, and we lose a lot of pressure by not popping that generator. I don't really know how I should play this. This is where macro comes in. Do I go for the unhook? Do I go for the risky unhook? She's going to be camping this David and this generator because it is so progressed. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna let Michaela and Claudette take care of this, because they have been playing for unhooks and altruism earlier in the game, so I trust them to do that now. And I'm going to start going on this main generator as well, just so we get progress on something else and try to build pressure on other areas. This is what I'm talking about, invisible pressure. This isn't pressure that the killer will notice. The hunters won't notice that I am on this generator, but my teammates know that I am on this generator, and it will increase their optimism to actually winning the game. And later in the game, the hunters might get a little bit shocked that we're actually popping these generators, building pressure from there. So we're probably going to get a second stage hook on David. I don't know if she's going to greet her way to death hook. We actually got a trade from Michaela and Claudette. They played really well. Claudette got down, which is really good. She's just gonna hook on the same spot again. We did see the Michaela have Sabo though, or yeah, when the was it? No, it was Claudette. I saw Claudette have Sabo actually when she tried to heal me on my first hook. She saboed that, and we're gonna have to finish this generator before we go ahead and pick her up. That's a really bad spot. It was good that they got a Sabo play off, but now we have insane pressure on us because the Huntress has 2 people slugged here, and is gonna get at least 1 hook off and could possibly camp the other slugged survivor. It is really good that the slugged survivor is actually moving toward us, so she doesn't build too much pressure. I'm gonna have to reset the David here before we actually go for a rescue. The down survivors, they can recover to as much as possible, and they should crawl toward us and not toward the hook. Okay, we do that, and let's see how we play this. Looks like she might find the David. Yes, she doesn't commit that much though, so I have to kind of use line of sight. We want her to focus on me while David is guiding them up. There we go. Okay, David with a fucking play. Okay, I thought I tapped that. Okay, this is fine though. I was pretty sure that I actually tapped that and she wouldn't be able to grab me. For some reason, she still pulled it off. I don't know why or how. This David has to commit to unhooking right now. Okay, that's good. We're in a really bad spot. And there's not much macro that will help us here. I'm gonna drop down. I wanted to drop down a little bit so it would be difficult for her to actually hook me here. I don't know what this Claudette is doing. We got up here, then we get on the David. The Claudette kind of fucked up. She hasn't realized that we have to pick up David there. Now she's gonna get it down on him again. Claudette should never go for the generator there. That was a little bit weird. I don't know what we can do here. We need to reset. We could have probably reset if Claudette went and picked up the David with me. Because then we would have distance from the Huntress. Yeah, now she's probably going here. Yeah, that is how you can see snowball in snowballing with macro. The Claudette pulled off a pretty bad macro play by tapping the gen instead of picking up David, and now the Huntress have built up a lot of pressure. We're gonna leave her on the ground. Hopefully she will get hooked. That is important because she hasn't been hooked yet. And if she goes and hooks her, it's better than her getting a hook on me or David or the Michaela, obviously. We're gonna go ahead and do this generator because we have no gen pressure right now at all. She's gonna get a hook off on the David. We'll see what Michaela does. I'm not sure. Let's see. We have Fogwise to help us track the Huntress, which is good for us. I think that the Claudette and Michaela... it's good that they get this reset. I don't know if they're gonna try to pressure that generator. They may or may not try to do it. If they do it, that's good. If they don't, that's really good because they should be focusing on David. She's running over there toward them, so I'm actually gonna go and unhook him. Even though we lose pressure on the generator, they're pressuring that generator, so it doesn't matter too much because we still have gen pressure, which is important, obviously. So we want to go make sure that she isn't too close. We want to unhook him, and we'll want to get out of kind of line of sight a little bit. Not too much, because it won't matter that much. Yeah, she's right here. I'll leave everything to him. Window vaults and whatnot. Okay, she's not going to go... Like, even if she gets me down, she's probably just going to run after the David here. I want to do this generator kind of desperately. I'm not super happy about him being here. We're gonna try to confuse him, the Huntress. Me and Claudette here. I'm gonna repair the generator. Gonna run around all crazy. She actually gets him. Most likely she's gonna be going for me and Claudette here. Really, really bad. It would have been really, really good for us to be able to get this generator done, but we don't, so I have to go ahead and find another one. We have the David tag getting tunneled out, and that is obviously going to build pressure. Everything is about pressure as per usual, so we want to get a generator to about 50%, I would say. I would say that that gives us the best advantage in order to win, that we get a generator to 50% before the David actually dies. We have Michaela, Claudette doing really altruistic things. They have Sabo, both of them, which is really good. We see the David getting picked up, builds an insane amount of pressure because now the Huntress has to go and find the David and get him down, and we've seen that the David has been looping really well. We know that the Claudette is on our generator. We have pressure there because... okay, so... This is the thing about invisible pressure. This is what I'm talking about. Your opponent has invisible pressure as well, but they can be aware of it. This Huntress may think that she has an insane amount of pressure right now. She has the David on death hook and injured and is constantly slugging him and going after him. And in that same area, we have Claudette, Michaela, both of them trying to like help him and be around him, and they are trying to get that generator done. That is the most progressed in Huntress's eyes. So she thinks that she has a ton of pressure, when in actuality she doesn't have that much pressure because I am actually spreading out on generators, or like on this one. I'm working on this generator without her knowing it, so she thinks she has pressure, she thinks she's controlling the game, when in reality she doesn't, until something like this happens where we have two people downed, which is really bad for us. My teammates see me on this generator though, which is really good, and she is going for the hook on the Claudette, which is really good. The Claudette might get hooked close to us, which is not that good, which is going to be pretty bad for us, but she won't actually make it. And now we have the last generator done, and that is really good for us to build pressure. No way out, which is good as well. I'm guessing she doesn't have things like Know It either, or like Blood Warden, or any like end game perks to build pressure in the late game or the end game, I mean. So all in all, this is looking really good for us, except for David getting injured right there. The thing is, we're never getting a 4-man escape. But you know, getting a 2-man escape or a 3-man escape is gonna be good as well. He's running away from the gate, which is not that good. Same with Claudette. They're both running to the main building for whatever reason. We're gonna kind of have to let him kind of get slugged and kind of die here, unless Claudette comes here right now. Okay, fuck me in the ass. I'm so bad. I need to block for Claudette here. Yeah, we need to fully reset him. Shit, man. Like, we're in a situation now where the worst case scenario is getting a 3-man escape, kind of. Obviously, we could still be in a worst case scenario. Worse. And, like, a 3-man escape is really good for us. Something like this is really bad because now we might get just a 2-man escape. So this is a much worse case scenario, but we can still make it from here. That's the thing. I have to run to this gate here. Oh, I didn't check that. I don't know where the gates spawn. Okay, I see David. So what's gonna happen here is she's gonna slug that survivor and the other one hooked, giving us, pressuring us a lot. She's actually leaving the slug survivor. The slug survivor should move toward us ASAP. We're gonna go a long way around. We're gonna go around like this to make sure we don't accidentally run into her, because that can obviously ruin the game a lot. She's opening the gates to build pressure from endgame collapse. My teammates should move around to the main building, because that's the least expected thing for us to do right now in Huntress's eyes. So she's not patient right now with it, with the hatchets. She never downs me here. And if she commits to me, there is a big risk that my teammates will escape, that she should be aware of. I'm just gonna keep her here. Okay, she's gonna leave me here. But that's really good. I wasted quite some of her time, which is pretty good for us. The resetting in shack, not the best thing ever. Again, she's stopped being patient, so she's missing a lot of the things. I don't really do anything here. I don't build any pressure since I'm injured. So I'm just gonna stand here, just because why not? But my David knows where the gate is. Hopefully my other teammates do. So most likely we're going to get a 4-man escape here, which is a really good situation to be in. And this is how you can use macros to your advantage to come to reach a better spot in the game when you have a bad start. You have a possibility to actually turn the game around a lot with macro and doing the correct macro plays. Probably a lot of the plays I did this game is maybe not the best plays, same with my teammates, but with macro it's not always going to be about you winning by doing all the right things and doing, you know, the perfect decisions all the time, because there's so many different decisions that you can make. But in the end, it is a lot about actually being able to succeed with those decisions and being able to take the right decisions in order to actually get an advantage and try to win. Are they actually gonna be able to get out? No, I don't know. I mean, this is a 4-man escape if my teammates don't troll here, obviously. But you know, that's fine. It's just, you know, they have to take accountability for doing stupid things like that and not actually escaping. Things like that can be tilting as well. Doing everything you can and still not getting the result because of your teammates. Like that, when your teammates don't really care too much, but that's the thing. Like I said, that I've said earlier, Dead by Daylight isn't about winning. It can be extremely tilting when instances like this, where there was a possibility that we got a 2-man escape when it should have been a 4-man escape. There can be possibilities that you do everything for your teammates. You make sure that you die, but they all can escape, and still all of them die because they do a minor like slip up and stuff like that. It can be really tilting, but don't let it get to your head. Instead, focus on trying to improve and make better decisions in the future. And make sure that you actually try to learn from every game, and that you try to put yourself in a situation where you can comfortably come up with the right decisions to make, and at the same time you're not overthinking things, and you're not stressing out too much, and you're able to actually focus your thoughts in order to try to make the right decisions, in order to actually like perform well and get the end result that you most likely want. And yeah, like I said, macro is all about doing everything you can in order to win and give your team the best possibility to win. Put as much pressure on your opponent as possible, etc., etc. And that is basically what macro is, and you've seen some examples of how it works in game and how you can go about thinking about macro decisions in the game. I hope you find some usefulness with this. I did the micro guide as well, so go ahead and watch that if you want. Micro is more about your personal gameplay and how you are going to go about playing the game based on you and yourself. This didn't focus too much on an actual looping guide. I will be doing that more in the future though, like an actual serious, more in-depth looping guide that is more based around looping and not just micro stuff, and more specifically with looping. But I hope you find something good with this, and that you get something good coming from actually watching this video and learning more about macro, a topic that is not discussed at all in the DBD community, what I've seen, because it goes hand in hand with a lot of other gameplay aspects, and not many people put it in this category of actually being macro. And it doesn't get talked about a lot because, as I said, it is all about winning and giving your teammates and yourself the upper hand, making sure that you get the best possibility to win, and that is not what Dead by Daylight is about. But you should still be aware of macroing in order to actually try to play the game better, become better, improve, and enjoy the game more, because you enjoy stuff that you're good at more than you enjoy stuff that you are bad at usually. But anyways, I hope you've been enjoying this. Also, very, very long video. If you watched this far, thank you very much. Don't forget to watch me on Twitch if you're interested. Twitch.tv/I'm Bappus. It is also a link in the description where you will be able to like find out more about stuff like this in more specific scenarios. Come by and ask me anytime any questions about micro and macro. Ask me if you want like... If you want me to explain stuff that is happening in the current game that I'm playing when I'm live, and, you know, etc., etc., you just go wild if you want to. Thank you so much for watching anyways, and I hope that I see you all in the future.